Andy, I was a bad host last Wednesday because I failed to recognize a very important anniversary. If you'll so indulge me, what you know, 4 years ago on Wednesday, Andy, we were in the midst of the COVID craziness. It was early. Obviously, March was early on there.
Yeah, yeah.
We had a note from the president's coronavirus guidelines for America. 15 days to slow the spread.
That's right.
Listen and follow the directions of your state and local authorities. If you feel sick, stay at home. If your children are sick, keep them home. If someone in your household tested positive, keep the entire household at home. Do not go to work, don't go to school, contact your medical provider. If you're an older person, stay home and away from people. If you're a person with serious underlying health condition that could put you at increased risk, stay home and away from people. Andy, this still applies today. I have to give credit to the former president for putting such guidance out like this. This is amazing.
Yeah,
And yet this message today, it's very true. It's very simple, very straightforward. Hey, if you're sick, stay home type of thing. Don't go to work and infect other people with your germs. Yet today, that message would probably be lambasted. You'd probably be ridiculed. You might as well just go hide somewhere.
yeah.
Andy, what do you think about 4 years from that, from Wednesday?
Well, one I was going to say, Dave, I wanted to bring it up in the background for you, just so we could have it, to commemorate the occasion. I think the guidance itself is very simple and logical, and it's like good, it's good, being a good neighbor, right? Don't get everybody else sick. And we know that people deny this all the time, right? Whether it's parents, sending their kids off to school sick and disgusting, and getting the whole classroom sick, and then getting all the other parents sick. We both lived through that, I'm sure, many times over the years of raising young kids. People coming to the workplace or going out, and whether it's the flu or COVID or something else, your little local gathering and super spreader events still happen because people don't have the discipline to follow these basic rules. But as much as these rules make sense and are great, I just want to take a moment just to commend former President Donald Trump for successfully defeating COVID. I mean, he shared with us at the time this is what it was going to take. And if I recall, this came out on March 16th, Dave, and I think April 2nd, April 3rd, like COVID was done, right? So great job. Great conquering victory.
Just inject it in your veins, Andy. Just inject it in your veins.
Yeah.
So, all right, somebody will get that joke somewhere along the line. But Andy, you're looking sporty today. I have to say, you've got this. You're going sleeveless.
It was an accident, actually. I typically get my clothes out in the evening time so as not to bother my wife in the early hours when I wake up. And last night I forgot to do that, and so I did it real quickly after I turned the lights off. I didn't know it was kind of a grab bag. I didn't know what I was getting my hands on. So I woke up this morning and realized I had my workout shirt instead of a regular shirt. But they feel
and you got your
taller, Dave.
you got your thong on underneath, so I'm sure. So,
I mean,
um,
how do you know I've got anything underneath? I'm standing right now. You don't know what's going on down there.
what's on the shirt, Andy? You got a squatter there?
My oldest son got this for me. This is my squat father shirt.
Squat father. There you
I like it. It's a fun shirt. I like the fact the guy's bald, here, so it kind of resembles me. He's similarly similar physique, I'd like to think, so so it's my squat father shirt. I'm not a gangster godfather, but squatting is something I've always enjoyed and still enjoy. Matter of fact, I was doing the squats yesterday. Yesterday was leg day, followed by a nice ruck walk with my wife, and we had a good time. So it was
nice,
good.
nice.
That's good. Yeah, yeah.
It's
My
spring
leg, my leg was
is
feeling it this morning.
spring. The weather is beautiful. It's going to be in the low 70s here this today. Might get a little chilly. I think there's going to be a dip next week sometime, but
Yeah.
we're officially old that we're talking about the weather, Andy.
Well, I think we got other things to talk about, Dave. If we run out of time,
Yeah, let,
let's get there. Let's get there.
let's get there, Andy. One of the things we started talking about on Thursday, or gosh, it's Friday. I can't believe it. But one of the things we were talking about on Wednesday, Andy, as we were ending the show, is about a new law that's going in Florida, where lawmakers voted to raise the stripping age to 21. Again, you can vote, you can take up arms for your country, you can die for your country, you can do a lot of things, Andy, at the age of 18. But in Florida, you can't strip unless you're 21. And in fact, Andy, employing somebody under the age of 21 at an adult venue could mean 15 years in prison, Andy, even if that person used a fake ID. So look, fake IDs are prevalent around today. It's not quite like they were in our days of growing up in the back room with somebody had a little, the splicer or some of the laminator things out there. Very high tech and it's big business out there, Andy. So even if it's a fake ID, somebody can get 15 years in prison. So that's how Florida celebrated International Women's Day. What are your thoughts on this? I know you got a lot of them.
I do. So I'll say, still, I think kids today still just going back for a second. Kids today still buy fake IDs, unless like buying a fake ID or acquiring a fake ID to me is still a great American milestone. Like that's so there's an exhilaration
I
with
never had a fake ID, Andy. I never had one.
it. I did. I did. We'll just leave it there. But that, Dave. So this article. So this was in Region Magazine. Elizabeth Nolan Brown, by the way, a great newsletter. She has a few times a week the Sex and Tech newsletter. Great newsletter. Strong recommend for anybody to check it out. Liz does a great job with that, covering a variety of topics. And this one, Dave, there's a couple things that we do as a country that piss me off, right? This is one of them, which is trying to extend the age to get to adulthood. And then you brought up the exact point. If it is wholly wrong to say, hey, we can draft you into the military against your will, send you to a foreign land against your will, throw a rifle in your hand, the American flag on your shoulder, and let you fall and die for your country. But you can't buy alcohol, you can't have sex, you can't have tattoos, you can't be a stripper if you want to be a stripper. There's something wrong with that. We in the United States do not believe in sending children to war, right? So if we're saying that 18, 19, 20-year-olds are not children, then let's stop fucking treating them like children and let them make their own decisions and live and die with the consequences of those choices. And you know what? They're going to make bad choices, Dave, because that's kind of what we do when we're 18, 19, 20. I'm 47, still doing it from time to time, right? And that's how we learn and grow. But we want to coddle these kids, right? And treat them like children way too long. Then we complain that they still live with mom and dad at 25 years old. We've never let them grow up properly and make their decisions. It really pisses me off, right? And so I think it's un-American, and I think it's unethical to be willing to send a kid to die, but not let them make basic choices for themselves. Parents, do your job, raise your kids to make decent choices. I made good choices and bad choices. I made life-affecting choices when I was 18, 19. Hell, Dave, I was engaged at 20. You're going to tell me I can get engaged, but I can't, be a stripper if I want to be? Come on. I mean, it doesn't make sense. So it really pisses me off. I wrote about this about 5 years ago. They're saying that, if it's 18, it's 18. If that's the age of adulthood, then that's the fucking age of adulthood. And there's a lot of, arguments people make, especially on like buying alcohol, which is nonsense, but we can talk about that separately because I'm ranting on too long. But good article. Thank you, Liz, for writing it. Stupid issue, very frustrating. I don't know. What are your thoughts, Dave? Am I wrong here to be pissed off about this?
No, I think this is just where you get people trying to latch on to something and they find a target and they try to go to it because it's so hard. Like I think what Florida lawmakers will probably argue, Andy, is that this is going to stop sex trafficking, and which is prevalent around the world, right, Andy? I mean, kidnapping young girls, boys, even at young ages, and then trafficking them around. It feeds into a lot of also, Andy, all of these pedophilia, conspiracy theories, and such. But again, it does talk about sex trafficking and how this would then prevent, um, you know, girls from being trafficked, which is just not. This is not the solution, right?
That's right.
This is not. This is again latching on what it does. Is just it allows people to or authorities to just target sex clubs and such, which again, if people want to indulge in that kind of stuff, they should have the right to do that kind of thing. But now you're putting penalties on employers, and you're not really stopping the sex trafficking because they'll just go somewhere else. And in fact, the more dangerous thing is potentially going deeper underground where you
Right.
can't police and you can't do any of that stuff.
Right.
it's the same it's the same contention about abortion, right? Because if you stop the abortion, then people are still going to have them. They're just not going to be in safe conditions, and then that'll lead to even greater issues. But really, this doesn't do anything to prevent that. And again, if some to your point, if somebody chooses to want to indulge in this as a profession, and again, who am I to judge what people do as professions? This really says you can't do that until you're 21 in the state of Florida. I'm not
Yeah.
so sure. It is also worth noting, Andy, that Texas has also got a similar bill in place as well. Not surprisingly, I guess, but yeah, this is very interesting to see that this is the path you take instead of going after the harder thing, going after criminals. So whether or not, I guess my question is going to be is like, how do you determine that somebody is 18 years old, 19? How do you enforce this, Andy? Honestly, can you think of any like what a police officer goes to a strip club to enjoy a strip club and
Yeah.
he realizes that the girls with lap dancing on him is actually 20 years old? Is he going to go and now all of a sudden, do a crackdown? How does that work? I guess I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, it's nonsense. And Dave, you brought up a number of good points here. The abortion one being a very good one. And let us just say, right, no matter how illegal abortion ever is, those with the financial means will always be able to get abortions safely through doctors, medical providers will provide it for them for the right price. It really harms those that don't have the means to pay for abortions the most. But that's a separate issue for another day. But this is a great example, Dave. One, of the increasing authoritarianism and Talibanization of the morality police here in the United States. It's unfortunate to see, right? You mentioned Florida, you mentioned Texas, but two, it's a great example of where the government passes bad laws and then makes more bad laws to address the issues of those bad laws, right? So the war on sex and the general work on attack on sex work, right? Whether we morally agree with the decisions people make to work in the sex industry, whether it's pornography or escort services or whatever, right? We can morally agree or disagree with that. But if it's consensual activity among healthy adults, it ain't anybody's business, right? And so to like the point you made, right, to try and address the war on sex and clamp down on sexual activities, consensual sexual activities, there's laws that are passed that don't work, that put people at harm because they make it harder, impossible in some cases, for sex workers to get proper police support. If you compare it to the Netherlands, where they have a button they can push, right, to get police to respond to an incident. Here, they have no recourse if somebody gets violent or harms them or threatens them. And now, you're adding more laws to address already existing bad laws. It's just a complicated mess, and it's 100% typical of what we do in this country, and it's very frustrating. And nobody's. I'm not arguing the morality of it. You can hate the business. That's fine. Don't go. Don't support it. Right. That's a market decision, but it's not the place to legislate against it. So it is frustrating. It's a good example. Dave, I'll just say this real quick. I don't want to pivot to other issues, but I'll just tell you the other issue that really gets under my skin. There's a lot of them, but this is one. And I'm curious what your thoughts would be on this. And that goes to flying the flag at half mast, right? I get pissed when we fly the flag at half mast because to me it's really disrespectful when we do it for 98-year-old Senator Bumblefuck who served in the Senate for a couple of years and is a friend of the current president or whatever it is, and we lower the flag around the country for this guy when day after day, we've seen soldiers falling in combat zones. We wouldn't lower the flag for them. To me, that's hugely disrespectful. It pisses me off, and I think if you're not going to lower the flag for every service member, that dies in combat operations, so that flag would almost always be half mast during combat activities, then you shouldn't fly at half mast for anybody. I don't care if you're the president of the United States. You're just another guy with a dick serving your country like every other Joe that's out there. Joe probably served a lot harder and more difficult, circumstances than you did. We won't fly the flag half mast for them. I don't think you should fly for anybody. Is that a ridiculous position?
No, I don't think it is at all. I think we've overdone it now over the years too. It used to mean something where we had something significant happen, but now it is one of those things
Yeah.
that look, I honestly haven't really thought much about it, but it is. I can appreciate your point, but look, it should mean something when we do these things. And I think a lot of things now are just done symbolically
Yeah.
out of habit and not with real any true meaning. There's nothing behind it anymore. And I just, yeah, I don't know if I have much more of an opinion on it, but yeah, I
Just
don't,
just threw that at you out of nowhere, Dave. Just throwing it out there,
yeah,
something for
yeah,
folks to think about, right? To me, it's a great sign of disrespect. There are times as a country to stop and
yeah, yeah.
reflect. Yeah, I don't think, no offense, thanks for your service, but when President Clinton passes away, when President Bush passes away, like we don't need to lower the flag because you passed away. We didn't do it for Sergeant Smith when he fell in combat. We don't need to do it for you. Anyway, that's an aside, Dave, something that folks can think about. Happy to argue about it if anybody wants. I know there's other places you wanted to go.
Yeah, we'll definitely we definitely want to move on, but I will just say one thing, Andy, is like I do think this goes speaks to the larger issue about like the devaluing of the professionalism of the military, and I think that's where we are in this country. People will stand and say they're patriots and they support our troops, but actually that's just a token phrase at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
So, anyways, but that's a larger issue. We've talked about that a little bit in the past. Andy, all right, I want to do this wrap up our podcast in the last couple of minutes here with the status of free agency. Let's do
Oh,
a
yeah.
sports check-in, Andy. Um, NFL free agency kicked off earlier this week. A
Yeah.
lot of big moves, a lot of changing teams, a lot of things that are going on. How are you feeling about the state of your Detroit Lions?
Well, first, let me say, Dave, I love the fact we're talking about football in March, and like I'm fully in on the NFL being a full year sport activity. So I just want to put that out there. I love it. I'm glad we can talk about it. To the Detroit Lions, generally a quiet, off season so far, free agency wise. I'll come back to some of the players and activities there. Most notably, though, Dave, just yesterday, the Lions signed a 4-year extension with general manager Brad Holmes and coach Dan Campbell. That was a huge win, right? So I know everybody's looking at players, but for NFL, I'm sorry, Detroit Lions ownership to say, hey, we're committed to this general manager and coach for another 4 years, taking him through 2027, that's a huge, huge victory for the Lions franchise. So super glad to see that. Good job, Sheila. Thanks for being a great owner. We haven't had anybody like you sitting in the owner's box in my lifetime. So super glad to see that. On the free agency end, it's been pretty quiet. We have had some activity. We picked up a cornerback, picked up a linebacker, picked up a lineman who looks interesting, DJ Reader. Doing good. Re-signed one of our key offensive linemen, Graham Glasgow, as well as Dan Skipper, who seems to sign and get cut by the team every year and come back in one way or another. Also re-signed our kicker. Anybody that follows the Lions knows that our GM has not been committed to kickers. He kind of brings somebody new in every 3 months, it seems like. So it's been quiet, but I think it's been good. I really trust this leadership teams. I think they're probably targeting one or two trades out there that they're looking at, and I think they're really looking to the draft. And I'm happy with where things are. I'm fine without big splashy free agency pickups so far. Brad Holmes doesn't like to spend a lot of money. He likes 1-year contracts, and I like what he does with that. So I'm good. I'm good. I'm still waiting for something big at some point this offseason, but so far I'm good. How about you, Dave? How are the Cowboys doing? I haven't paid attention to what's happening down
Well,
there.
hold on. Let's not. Well, I don't want to talk about the Cowboys. Let's talk about the Lions. I think the easy thing to do with free agency is get caught up in this whole thing about we're somehow needing to improve our team, and if we don't win free agency, we're not going to win in the season.
Yeah,
Well, you see, that really doesn't matter at all. The Commanders, formerly Redskins, formerly football team, used to win the offseason every year, and then they would suck.
yeah,
And so for the Lions, it's interesting because they don't like offensively. They've got their quarterback, they've got running backs, they've
yeah.
got good ones, they've got wide receivers. So like you're really arguing over the edge, the margins on this part. So I don't think I wouldn't expect that they would do a whole heck of a lot. Now, Andy, that's different because your team went to the NFC Championship last year. My team did not. And I will just tell you, free agency has fucking sucked. 2 years ago, Andy, we had Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard in our backfield, and
Yeah.
they were awesome. They were great, and I recognize Ezekiel Elliott wasn't worth what he was being paid, but he was still really high quality running back, and then used in certain terms, he could have been good going forward. But they released him. That's fine, and he went and signed with the Patriots, and he was menial at best there. But Tony Pollard, now he's got the spotlight on him, had the backfield all to himself, and he had a rough year by himself. I mean, we had a couple spots here and there, and now he's gone, Andy. He's now with the Tennessee
Yeah,
Titans. So
yeah.
now we have no running backs. I mean, yes, we have running backs on the roster, but like if you're talking about a team that should be competing to win a Super Bowl, I'm sorry, but you need some name there. You don't need a first round draft pick or the number one overall draft pick with running backs. We know that they're a little overvalued in some respects, but you need something and you need
Yeah.
somebody, and we don't have any of that. But Andy, let me just reel off what we've done in free agency here. We've signed linebacker Eric Kendricks from he was originally going to agree to terms with the Chargers, then he flipped over to the Cowboys. Okay, fine. He fills the middle and the middle linebacker position. And then Andy, we just re-signed our corner. We re-signed a cornerback. We re-signed a long snapper, always important, and another cornerback. That's it, Andy. That's all we've fucking done here. And so, like, what's and now news is coming out about police investigating Dak Prescott for potential sexual assault. We know. I mean, look, this is like what are we doing here? This is just ridiculous. And oh yeah, by the way, we've got Mike Zimmer as our coach. So it's just shaping up to be a classic Cowboys off season. It's going to be a classic. Nothing, no big splash, no big movement, nothing. But yet the owner will keep raking in money, bringing people to Texas Stadium. They'll have a great halftime show. Maybe they'll bring Creed reunion tour back for halftime show, and it'll be fucking great. And maybe we get in the first round of the playoffs and we'll probably lose. So Andy, I got nothing. It's just so pissing. So, but I did want to do something. Andy, anything else on your team? Because I just wanted to go over some of the higher, transactions and see
Yeah.
what you think of some of those, Andy.
Yeah, yeah. Let's do. I'm happy where the Lions are. I'm happy where the Cowboys are. And well, let's do it. Let's talk. There's been some interesting activity this offseason. Some teams really making a push, and some teams really not. So yeah, let's talk about it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah, okay. So here we go, Andy. So let's go with just recently here, as in yesterday or last night. The Chiefs signed Hollywood Brown to a 1 year deal, just a 1 year deal. He was on the Ravens. I remember, he came up with Lamar early on. Then he went to the Cardinals, got stuck with that quarterback situation going on there. And now he's with the best quarterback in the league, Patrick Mahomes, and probably one of the most dynamic offenses. Kansas City really needed a
Yeah,
top tier receiver. Not that they didn't have good receivers, but you know you can't have Tony as being one of your main ones. I think
yeah.
this is a good upgrade. What do you think on this one, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, the Chiefs have done this before. They bring in, like a receiver, a running back, a draft or free agency to fill a spot, like just to serve the purpose for that next Super Bowl run, right? And this is a place that was a weak spot for them this last season. They needed this additional receiver. They got it. I mean, he's a good player. He's a good athlete. He's going to complement them. He's going to take some pressure off of Kelsey. Good pickup. I think for the Chiefs, good move. You've given Patrick Mahomes another weapon. Notably, they re-signed Chris Jones to a massive contract. Very good move on their end. And they franchised tag L'Jarius Sneed, who I'm still hoping is in the mix for a trade with the Lions, but we'll see if that works out or not.
Yeah, I think it'll be an interesting one for sure. Andy, Saquon Barkley goes interdivision between the New York Giants
Yeah.
and the Philadelphia Eagles. You're an Eagles kind of connected. How are you
Yeah.
feeling about that one?
Yeah, so I don't know if I really like it, to be honest. They traded DeAndre Swift, who I think was more than fine as their running back. He came from the Lions. I think he's young, he's great, he's versatile. I don't know. Saquon is still a big, expensive question mark to me. He's been plagued by injury. He hasn't really gotten a whole lot done on the field. Potential is there. I don't know that that's the move I would have made. I think I would have re-signed DeAndre Swift, to be honest. But you need somebody in the backfield, like you said. Saquon behind that Eagles O line minus Kelsey now. He could do really well. So I think it's a fine move. They also re-signed C.J. Gardner-Johnson, who was with them, then with the Lions, now back with a 3 year deal with the Eagles, and they have a lot of other activities. So I think they're trying to give the right players to that team to say, hey, look, Nick Sirianni, like get us back on track. let's go, win some playoff games, after this the collapse of last season. So I think they're doing some good things. Although I didn't really love the running back situation.
Okay, that's fair enough. I actually do like this one a lot. I think with the I think there's a stat like Saquon was running behind the 31st best
Yeah, yeah,
line, and now he's going to the first. If I mean, at least it'll be a top five still. They've got dynamic weapons now on offense in every position. I like Swift, I agree, but I think he underperformed where he could have done, and I think it'll be interesting. I really like the move for the Eagles. I'm scared because now I think that unless Sirianni just has completely lost that football team, I think this is a really dangerous team to come into. All right,
agreed.
Andy, what about Kirk Cousins going to Atlanta Falcons? Big deal.
Big deal. The Falcons, and they signed like 4 or 5 receivers to go along with that. I mean, look, the NFC South sucks, right? And the Bucks have made some signs on if you're going there, but the Falcons saying, hey, look, we're just going to win this division like right now. They signed Kirk Cousins first. Kirk Cousins, he is a top 10 paid player in NFL history because he never signed the long 10-year contract. This all goes back to Washington and stupid Dan Snyder, right? Because the way that Kirk Cousins has had his contracts written, he gets paid insanely. Good for him. Good for Kirk Cousins. He is a perfectly decent quarterback, right? He's a solid, reliable, not top 10 quarterback, but
Yeah.
consistently very good. He's going to be great in Atlanta. He's going to do a great job down there. He's reliable. He's fine. Great signing. Good for him to get paid. And they're bringing wide receiver talent to help him along. That team is going to be very different than the one it was a year before. I don't know how strong their new coach is going to be. I still know him well enough to know if he's going to be a success or not. But they're putting themselves in position to win the South. And that's all you got to do. When your conference gets to the playoffs, second season, who knows from there? So I'm excited by it. Kirk Cousins is a lovable dork. I'm glad to see him sign this, and I think the Falcons, good for you. Very successful offseason for Atlanta. Good job, ownership.
Well, so the Falcons have invested in the last couple of years on offensive weapons, and then they had just shitty quarterbacks that
Yeah,
couldn't ever get them the ball. They had a top in the first round draft pick, Bijan Robinson for
yeah,
as running back, and they barely used them. I was like, this is where it's challenging. And then they had Kyle Pitts, though, who was supposed to be a transformational tight end slash wide receiver, and he's
yeah.
barely getting the ball. So what you get with Kirk Cousins is a proven quarterback. Now you can argue whether he wins in the playoffs or not. It doesn't matter. That offense, I think, is going to be very good.
Yeah,
And so I'm excited to see what's going to happen there. And let's just be real. I mean, the Buccaneers won that division last year. They were supposed to be awful. The Panthers are in that division. They're in a serious rebuild. They don't even know if they still have a quarterback. And then the Saints and the we have the Saints in there, and you're just not and Buccaneers. I don't know. It's just going to be. I think it's easily winnable, and I think this
yeah,
this makes it within reach. I mean, the Falcons, as bad as they sucked last year, still could have won the
yeah,
division. So I like this one. All right,
yeah.
Andy, let's just do one more here. What one more of these grades here? Let me try to scroll through the tracker here. I had it, and now I can't remember. Now I can't see where I got it. See, this is what happens when you do all these things, Andy. I'm just, here we go. From Calvin Ridley, the wide receiver out of Jacksonville, who's their top wide receiver last year, now going to the Titans.
Yeah.
The Titans have added again. I mentioned Tony Pollard earlier. You got Calvin Ridley as a wide receiver. They had a number one draft pick wide receiver a couple years back. And they've got Will Levis, who's a young, unproven. He was a rookie last year, had some flashes last year. They're tying. They're saying let's go with Will Levis and let's see what weapons around him can do. You like Calvin Ridley going to the Titans?
I like Calvin Ridley going to Titans for Calvin Ridley. $92
Yeah,
million over 4 years is a good thing. Tony Pollard's a fine running back. He's not replacing Derrick Henry, and
yeah.
they did sign Mason Rudolph as their backup. Right, and they really I question their the strength of quarterback there. I think the Titans are positioning themselves for a big fat nothing of a season. That division, look, the Jags have been aggressive on the offseason. They acquired Mac Jones, who's as exciting as Mason Rudolph, but but they've made some noise, and I still trust in their coaching staff and Doug Peterson to get things done there. But some other really exciting moves in that division, right? Joe Flacco signs a backup to their starting young quarterback. Great guy to mentor a young quarterback, and they've had some other signs too, Michael Pittman and others. And then look at the Titans, right?
Yeah.
Already like a dangerous team, getting stronger, picking up Joe Mixon, who I think is an underappreciated running back. I
You
don't
mean
think
the
the Titans.
Texans? You mean the Texans, right?
Who did I say?
Titans. You said
Yeah. Oh,
Titans.
yeah. Yeah. Sorry, Texans. Yeah, Texans. Like they're positioning themselves to
Yeah.
really like run away with that division. I think like they're a good team. I'm excited by the Texans. I'm interested in the Colts. I think the Titans are just. I think it's going to be. I think it's going to be a rough season or two as they figure everything out down there. New coach, some new players. I think they have a talent gap. So I don't think they've quite solved that yet.
Yeah, I think that division is going to be really interesting because it was a laughing stock. It was supposed to be a laughing stock. The Jags were supposed to go away with it, and then the Houston Texans have come up and really solidified themselves. I think they've had a really good offseason for sure. Andy, I'll hit you with one bonus one, and then we can wrap up. You mentioned it, Henry going to the Ravens for running back.
Yeah.
Derrick Henry, the strong, powerful Titans running back is now in Baltimore, where I just can see like nightmares of what that offense is going to look like.
Yeah, I mean, like realistically, he's a threat no matter what he does, right?
Yeah.
But also realistically, that's the only team Derrick Henry could go to where he's the second best running back on that team. Lamar is still, I think, a bigger
I
threat
know.
than Derrick Henry is. I mean, look, Derrick Henry's good at pounding the ball. He can get it done. If things aren't going well, you can just feed him. He's going to get you yards and keep you competitive just because he slows down the speed of the game. He can always break one open. I think it's a great pickup for Baltimore. I don't know how it's going to affect the teams. It's a change to their formula. I think a Derrick Henry back there, but an interesting pickup for sure. And I'll just say, Dave, as we close this out on my end, like definitely watching the Bears on my end. But we'll come back because we probably got some thoughts on Derrick Henry, so don't want to take away from that.
Yeah, no, my only thought is as long as he stays healthy.
Yeah,
Look, I know running backs deteriorate over time, but I look, he's not going to have to carry the load like he did in Tennessee all those years.
yeah,
He's
yeah,
going to be able to get spelled. They're going to keep him fresh. I just think this is going to be really dangerous. But to your point, yeah, I do think the Bears are going to be. This is potentially with the number one draft pick, if that's Caleb Williams.
yeah.
uh, I think Justin Fields is the big loser here, but I didn't think much of him anyway. So
Yeah, interesting to see that nothing's happened with Fields yet. I'm curious what's going on there. I think he might be maybe he's a trade on
yeah,
draft day. I'm not sure. I think he's underappreciated still. But the Bears have done a lot of activity. They did pick up DeAndre Swift. They did pick up Keenan Allen. I don't like the fact that they're adding offensive players. And just a name to throw out there to just go back to our past, Dave. They signed quarterback Brett Rippon to a 1-year contract. Brett
yeah.
Rippon is the nephew of former Washington Redskins quarterback Mark Rippon, who went to the Super Bowl, who was one of a series of just unlikely Super Bowl winning quarterbacks that Joe Gibbs led through the 80s and early 90s, right? I mean, Mark Rippon, what was
Doug
the
Williams,
what's that?
Doug
Yeah, Doug
Williams.
Williams for sure. I was going to say Doug Williams, but there's
Yeah,
also Jay Schrader, right? That won a Super
yeah,
Bowl. Like, I mean, Washington won the Super Bowl with not the top quarterbacks in the league, which is interesting because they're just such a bad team today. Anyway, the Bears, good to see what they're doing. I'll stop there, Dave. I know we're going long.
yeah. It's hard to remember that the Redskins actually were good in those years, and when they had a decent owner. I mean, I think that's like Daniel Snyder screwed that team time and time again, but yet he walked away with billions. One, he had huge sexual allegations against him, huge improprieties against them. They were one of the worst franchises ever, but
Yeah,
his franchise value went up, and he sold for a lot of money.
yeah,
So.
yeah. It's
Um,
disgusting. Yeah.
Hate that guy. All right, Andy. Let's wrap. We did go long today, but it was fun. A lot of good conversation, Andy. I will look forward to the beginning part of next week before we continue on the podcast. But Andy, I'll catch up with you next time.